Hey, what's going on, baseball fans? Thank you for coming back and checking out another episode of the Going Yard podcast. Today we had an excellent interview with Rob Ciaravino, but before we get into that, we want to give a little love to one of our affiliates. This episode we brought to you by Baseball Lifestyle 101. Baseball Lifestyle, you can get pretty much anything you can possibly think of for that baseball player out there when it comes to apparel, jewelry, hats. What else, Tyler?
Everything. They got the boat shoes to go with it, and they got some of the best stuff for the coaches out there. Or you got the end of the season coming up with your players, with your coaches. They make great gifts with the Baseball Lifestyle sayings like grind until you're signed, or don't bunt, hit dingers, those types of things. It's fantastic apparel. You'll love everything that they offer.
That's right. So just go to BL101.com, enter the promo code GYP10 at checkout, and you will get 10% off of your purchase. So let's get on to this interview. Like I said, we had Rob Ciaravino on from the Hitting Academy. I was really blown away by this interview because this gentleman, he played college baseball. He's been coaching for a really long time, and he just knows his stuff. And what I loved about it the most is just the way he explains things, and he just makes it really easy. And I think you all will get so much out of this. He talks about everything that he uses as a coach. He even walks through the proper stages of hitting, from doing a dry swing to a tee to a front flip to a modified pitch to a live game. Everything was so awesome. I love how he did that. He was shared so much information that he didn't have to, and I love that he did.
It's a true development process that he has, and I think that's what probably shines through most about what he does. It may not be all the fancy technology and all that, but there's definitely a developmental process, no matter the age of the player that you're working with, whatever your son, daughter is. There's information in this podcast for that player, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Enjoy. Hey, Rob, thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, glad to be here, guys. How's it going?
It's going great, man. We really appreciate you coming on, and this should be a really good talk. Looking forward to it.
Yes, looking forward to talking to both of you guys as well. Anytime we can talk baseball or softball or anything, it's always a good night. So absolutely.
Hey, Rob, it's Tyler. Appreciate you taking the time to do this, to talk to our listeners and share your baseball story a little bit and what you have going on in the game today. And we always kind of like to start a little bit back with your playing days. And if you could talk a little bit about your baseball story growing up and what that experience was like for you.
Sure, love to. Grew up in New York and Long Island, and obviously was a baseball kid. Played a lot up there, and my brothers and I played, and Dad was always there for us, and so played up through there. Moved down to Florida, and moved to Seminole, and played in that organization. Then played through Seminole High School, which is fairly great tradition there at Seminole High, and back in the day, and then went on to play in college, knowing I was going to play in college with the idea of coaching one day, and so I had a enjoyable junior college and then college career, but nothing that's going to be in the NCAA Hall of Fame. But I did go in with the idea of one day working or coaching college players, and really enjoyed college baseball. Even before college baseball hit ESPN, I was always excited about it and kind of looked at it, back in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, 2000s. And now it's obviously taken off, and just always enjoyed working, with the game at different levels.
Now, you said you went to junior college. How powerful was that experience for you, for that step up going from high school to junior college? And, what were some of the challenges you found? Or if you didn't have any challenges, you can tell us about those as well. But just want to see what that transition was like for you.
Well, obviously, junior college baseball in some of the states is very, very competitive. You could even look at the draft. There was a lot of junior college players taken. So it's not always the baseball a step down. Sometimes it's a baseball step up. So very competitive in Florida, especially. To get there and have, I played outfield. Get there and have 4 or 5 outfielders just as good or better than you. Let you know you better start working. So I just love junior college route, for most kids that come out of high school. And I've had friends of mine, Florida State coaches and everybody, recommend the junior college route. And because, you're going to take the same classes, you're going to take, you're going to learn a lot of stuff, you're going to mature a lot. And then you can, if you're good enough, then obviously you could go play at a D1 or D2 or any high school after that and still get drafted. So there's a lot of pluses academically and baseball wise.
Now, what was the experience like of, recruiting's probably much different now than it was then. So what was kind of your experience like then with the whole recruiting part of it? Was it you just go into the colleges and visiting and saying, hey, I'm interested in this, talking to the coaches, or did they actually come out to the games? What was that like then for you?
Well, back in the 80s, it was done a lot different. Obviously, there was no perfect game events. It was going to their camps more, and you would try out and for them, and they would tell you right there on the spot, that you were going to play for them. Usually, it wasn't a long drawn out process, and the competition was just a lot different. Now it's extremely competitive market, for a kid to get to go from high school to college at any level, and it's a landscape that's changing every single year, every 3 to 5 years. Now it's difficult for a kid, for a player in high school to get to be known if he doesn't have someone pointing him in the right direction, maybe showing the college coaches, hey, check this kid out. Check that kid out. And I enjoyed doing that. I have built a lot of relationships with college coaches. I would say, I don't know, somewhere last can around 70, 80 coaches that I can, text or call and say, hey, check out this guy. He's, starting to throw it well, or maybe starting to hit with some different, things that he might have picked up, and just try to help him get to play at the next level.
No, actually, before I ask this next question, I have to ask you because I know you said you were born in New York, in Long Island. So, Yankees or the Mets?
I'm a Yankees guy. I don't know why, because living in Long Island, my family always took us to Mets games because it was closer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to drive that extra hour to go to the Bronx, but so maybe that was the middle child rebelling a little bit. But we were always brought up Mets and Jets, but. My dad was never pushed either way. Of course, now we live in Florida, so they're Rays fans, my family. But I still have a tendency to wear the NY when I go to those games underneath my Rays shirt. So.
I gotcha. Just had to ask. So I wanted to know. So now that you've gone through, you've played, you've had this experience of going from high school to junior college and then moving on and playing more college ball. What would you say? What are some of the things you say to your young players right now as a coach who are looking? They want to play at the collegiate level, and I like what you said. You had this in mind early on that, hey, I'm going to play college baseball, but I'm doing it because I know I want to coach someday. What are some of the conversations you have with these young players? And what's something that, a typical conversation you'd have with a kid saying, hey, do you think I could play college baseball?
Yeah, I pretty much tell most of them that they can play college baseball. They just have to be willing to, play where they're wanted. That might be a Division I school in the SEC, or it might be a Division III school in Vermont, or something along those lines. So I do enjoy the conversation with a lot of the parents and the kids, trying to just educate them that there's thousands of teams at every level, and it's hard sometimes for them to swallow the concept that they're not going to be able to get on Twitter and say, I have successfully committed to Joe's college in this town. They all have this vision that they're going to be putting Ole Miss or Auburn University or something, and sometimes they need to hear that reality and know that reality is not always going to happen. But as long as they're open to the idea that they can wear the costume an extra few years and play, then usually around their junior year they come to reality, and we're able to get them somewhere. It's a hard time for any human, any player, to realize that it's over. So sometimes they start out wanting the big team, the big school, and they just they come to reality at some time where they fit better, and hopefully they find a place to play.
Now let's transition a little bit into how you got into coaching. What was the transition like, going from player to coach? And what was your first coaching opportunity? Was it just, a rec team, or what was that like for you going, from player to instructor at that point?
Well, just at a young age, I knew I wanted to coach, as I said. So it actually started in my parents' garage. I started with a neighbor's kid at 20 years old. Family asked me, "Hey, you seem to know a little bit about hitting. Can you help my son?" So we set up a T station in the garage. I never let my parents park their car in the garage, and I dropped I went and bought a tarp at Home Depot that was 20 by 10, and rigged it, hung it from the ceiling, and we would just start having kids in the neighborhood come in and do hitting lessons. It was really for me to have a job at the time, and started to realize, that I've got maybe a knack for seeing things. And one of my best friends, Mike Bianco, the head coach at Ole Miss, was playing at Indian River Community College at the time, and another friend of mine who I played with, Kurt Latzo, went and played junior college, and we came home all together one summer and sitting there talking, and started realizing that, hey, there's something to this hitting thing. There's more to the just, beat the ball up and swing as hard as you can. There's actually a science to this. So I would say that in 1987, 88, I started, like I said, in the garage, and then doing lessons over the years and really studying the science of it. I started to realize that, this could be something where I can help a lot of kids and actually make a living doing it. And then in 2007, actually, was probably the first time we opened the hitting academy over in Clearwater and made it a full-fledged business, put 3 indoor cages. Even at that time, before video analysis was even, it was just coming on board, as you can imagine. In 2007, 2008, we started with some video there of some kids, and I started with that concept of I can't teach a player unless I capture it on video. I would never, if I walked into the emergency room with my son or daughter, and her arm or his arm was swollen, and the coach all of a sudden just threw the doctor threw a cast on it, I would say, well, hold on, don't you want to take an x-ray of it and see exactly what's wrong? And so I kind of looked at ourselves in that mode and realized that we have to take an x-ray of their swing before we can put a cast on it. And that was where video analysis started coming into my life. And now it's something that we have in every cage, and all of our instructors, we need to be able to, naked eye is not up for the task to see some of the things that are going on. So I realize and understand that, to be really good at helping kids, you have to capture it on high-speed video, in my opinion.
Right. Now, you had said earlier, you said that you realized, like, hey, this is a science. Where did you find out? And this is kind of backing it up a little bit. Like, did you see one player where it just connected, and you're like, you know what, this is good? Or was it a book you read, a coach you heard, do a clinic? How did you find out that, hey, this if we stick to this science, things will happen? Or was it just because you were a player and you experienced it?
No, a funny thing is, I started coaching and guys, MLB players, college players, and I started thinking, how am I going to separate myself? Why are they going to listen to me? And back about 15, 20 years ago, when this was really getting going, there was a phrase out there. Well, do you teach? People used to ask me, do you teach rotational or do you teach linear? And it was those two boxes. That was it. Do you teach rotational or do you teach linear? And I never really liked the answer that I had, because I didn't want to fit into one box. I looked at the swing and it didn't make sense to me. So I read the Physics of Baseball, a small book, and I've read, I probably have seen just about every clip and every video out there, because for some reason I'm psychotic like that, and I studied it. and then I started realizing, science deniers, there's different names for them, but for right now we'll just call them science deniers. And I started saying, well, if I could just figure out the real science behind how to make that ball bounce as it's in flight to you, what is the best way to do it scientifically, then I'm not going to be labeled as rotational or linear. I'm always looking at science, and then we teach it from that angle. And then parents who come in and players that come in, it's just a great way to streamline their thinking, because we're pointing it out to them. We're looking at, things. We talk about things as, at gravity and the anatomy of the human body and the way that it works and the way that it turns. And even to take it a step further outside of the human body is to look at, the pitch, that baseball, as it's thrown from a pitcher, if you were to just look at the actual ball flight and understand what the ball's doing with backspin out of the pitcher's hand, it's taken up a very finite amount of space on its way to you from that 60-foot mound to the plate, and it's bringing a certain amount of energy. The ball is thrown with backspin, and when we talk about energy in the baseball, I call it the leading edge of the baseball, and that is the best way to describe it is the center of the bruise if it hits you. Okay, that is the leading edge of that baseball that's thrown, and it's different for every throw. A curveball has a different leading edge. A fastball with high spin rate is going to hurt you and hit you differently. So to look at the leading edge of that baseball and how we counter that with the bat, we as a hitter have to create a leading edge of our bat. And when the leading edge of the ball collides properly with the leading edge of the bat, you have the hardest hit ball that you personally can hit. As you start to cut and slice into that leading edge and you come from the top or from the bottom and you miss it, then you don't have the impact on that baseball at the point of collision that you might if you hit it, equal and opposite the ball path.
Now, Rob, if you can, you're talking about some pretty advanced stuff, and that's fantastic. We dive a little more into that. But for the coach who out there is just kind of getting started, who doesn't really know, where to get started at, they're not sure they want to coach their son's team, or they're thinking about maybe starting a travel team, taking their kid and feeling like their kid needs a little more advanced instruction. What kind of advice would you give to them on where to start and where to get information at, and what should they be looking for as a first time coach, basically?
Well, 2019, I would tell them the first thing I would do is say, yes, you have to be on, get on social media, get on Twitter, get on Instagram, but mainly Twitter right now, and look at guys like Craig Hyatt who are doing phenomenal high speed videos for them to see and look at, and it really does show the collision and the way that things are happening. And I just would like to see them get a little more educated, and I think that's probably the quickest, easiest way to do it. Because most of the time they're taking big league hitters, the best in the game. It's known as the Hansen principle. If you're going to study something, why not study the best athletes in that field? And in our field, it's Major League Baseball players. Not always hustling the most, but I would say guys that are taking 98-mile-an-hour fastballs and hitting them 480 feet. We probably need to study that as opposed to, minor league, college, or high school players. So I would suggest that. I would definitely try to, for some reason, baseball is one of those sports where anybody that played it back in the 70s, 80s, or early 90s and now has children, they feel like it's good enough to take the data that they gathered as a youngster and, it's okay. My Little League coach was great. We won the city tournament every time, and he used to tell me this, and they feel like they can teach their children that. And I would say that, a lot of times they'll come in my hitting facility or our hitting facility, and they'll say, I just wish he would listen to me. He just doesn't listen to me. I want to tell him, well, sometimes it's better if he doesn't listen to you, okay? Because the things you're telling him are actually hindering his ability to hit because we thought what we saw back in the day or what we were told back in the day, we are still bringing. If you have a young player that comes to you and says, I want to be forget baseball, I want to be a golfer. I want to be the best golfer I can be. If you can afford it, you're not going to say, well, you know what, I've golfed before. Let me show you what to do. You're going to take them to the club. You're going to get a golf pro and somebody that studies it, I believe, a little more to help that player. But in baseball, for some reason, we think that we have all those answers. So I would just suggest to them to, get educated. At first, do no harm. Don't just start jamming elbows in places that they don't belong and heads and bodies in places they don't belong and just try to get educated.
Now, one thing you brought up was like you didn't want to be in this box or that box. Can you talk a little bit about, being open-minded as a coach, taking, a piece of this and piece of that maybe and putting it in and, not everybody is the same athlete, not everybody's the same hitter. Can you talk a little bit about how important that is and being able to maybe, teach something to a 12-year-old as opposed to a 17-year-old that might be a Division I prospect at the time?
Sure. I think that it does come back. I like to use the science phrase because whether they're 17, female or male, at the end of the day, it's a human body swinging a stick at a moving ball. So you do have some different limitations that you can and can't do, and you have to be able to. If you're looking at the collision course of the bat and the ball, and you work away from that, you say, well, okay, though I know that I want to hit the ball, and it's a very important topic that we're bringing up right here because of the fact that many people today are still teaching to hit down on the ball and create backspin. If we can get on the same page of what is the proper collision course, it is equal and opposite the ball path, then I don't mind the father or the mother or whoever's working with the player or the coach to continue to work with that athlete, because the end goal, if we understand the end goal is to match the plane of the ball and be on time with that pitch, then you have a little more freedom with the athlete and the coach and the drills they can do, because I'm not so worried. As long as it's kind of working backwards that we did back in the day. We worry more about the back foot and the pivot and the hip, and his hip's not turning 2 inches further. And I'm not so worried about that because let's face it, if you've ever been in the batter's box against guys even throwing 60 miles an hour, 70, 80, forget 98. You don't have a lot of time to do some of the things that these kids are being asked to do, players are being asked to do. You have very limited, very finite time. So what we try to do is get hitters 100% loaded so that they can loaded with power. That's a phrase that's kind of gotten, like a Kleenex, if you will. It's kind of just broad. When I look at being loaded, we talk about a gun. Let's talk about a gun. I don't like guns because of all the harm they do, but we do have to admit that they're very powerful, very explosive, very fast. And when you load a gun and you pull the hammer back, important, not just loaded, but pull the hammer back, that gun is loaded with power. That gun is going to be able to be aimed and point and shoot very quickly. So what we try to equate our hitters to do is you guys get loaded so that you can aim and point and shoot at a very short amount of time. So, just trying to, like I said, trying to work backwards into the idea of slamming into the ball the right way. And then I don't mind because they'll figure out the shortest path to do that.
Now, you had mentioned, you had talked about a little bit when you had started the hitting academy, started in Clearwater. How many facilities do you have now? And for our listeners, if you could just talk about everything that you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, well, in 2007, we started the hitting academy. My wife and I started the hitting academy in 2007, and things were going great. We worked with thousands of hitters. And then in 2014, decided to go over to Tampa and help. As most people know, listen to the podcast, Tampa has been a hotbed for baseball, for a very long time, and been producing big league players and great players. You see Tucker is doing some great things. He went to Plant, so there seems like every year or two, great players are going. So I thought Tampa would be great. And then we moved to opened another facility in 2016. Which was in Brandon, which is an outlying area of Tampa, loaded with families and great kids. And so we opened there in 2016. And then my brother lives out in Houston, Texas. And after spending some time with his family and our family, realized that, this might be a great place for another location. So we opened our Houston facility in 2018. And again, another baseball hotbed. Houston, Texas puts out more players probably today than about any city in the United States.
Man, you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on right now, man.
Yeah. We just going to keep these four rolling for a while. We've had some interest in franchises, but it's more is not always better. Sometimes it's better just to try to work on the what you have and make them great, and that's what we're in the mode right now of doing.
So what was the hardest part for you getting this up and going? Was it building clients, or was it, getting the facility the way you wanted it? I mean, what were some of the things that, the struggles you ran into with starting this? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to open my own business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then, 6 months later, they're out of business. A year and a half, they're out of business. I mean, you've been doing this for a long while. What were some of the early keys to your success?
Well, it's an ongoing drive. You got to have they call about the grind in baseball, minor leaguers and guys that are grinding it out. And this is no different, running any business. If I didn't have a knack for working with hitters, we'd be having the football academy or something, and you'd have to wake up every day and figure out how to get, the word out to more families and help more kids. And I have no idea how many players we've helped, through the hitting academy over the years. But I do know that players that I've worked with, and again, not to date myself, but they're starting to bring their children in, and their children are 8, 9, 10 years old. And so it's just it's been a rewarding experience. I would say difficult. I don't really know if I can nail down one difficult part. It's been enjoyable. It's been helpful. It's rewarding. And we just, continue to look for ways to continue to help more kids get the word out.
You had mentioned earlier about the having video to be able to see your players and using technology to do that. Can you talk about some of the technology that you're using? I've seen the facilities and the videos; they look absolutely outstanding. And if you could talk about what you're using to, whether it's exit velocity or watching the batters when they're swinging. What are some of the things that you're using to monitor all of this and help coach them to get better?
Well, we're big fans of HitTrax. HitTrax, is he's pretty much dominating out there, and I know there's a lot of great ones that are coming on board. But Mike DonFrancesco, he invented HitTrax years ago, and I think I was the first one in 2014 to buy 4 units from him at one time, and we put them in every cage. And if you go to Houston right now, every batting cage has a HitTrax, which now is mounted in the ceiling, so it doesn't take the hits. So HitTrax is a big part of what we do, and because of the feedback, and our hitters love the initial feedback. Anybody would, right? If you hit a golf ball the same way, you'd want to see how far down the course it went. Well, our hitters want to see, and I want to see as an instructor. It's made us better instructors when we can look at a swing and say, well, that ball just jumped off your bat at 85 miles an hour, and the next hit might be 75 miles an hour. We want to know why, and it's the immediate feedback to the player. And it's not so much about, and it also will show you the distance, but I'm worried about the 2 things. I'm worried about the ball exit speed and the launch angle. And I say worried. I'm not really worried about them. It's just something we now look at where it just it puts a grade on every hit, and it keeps the hitters accountable. It keeps the coaches accountable because, you can't hit the ball 65 miles an hour here as a high school player and think that, you're going to go out in the field and start driving the ball in the gaps. It certainly equates to success out on the field when you're, doing it in there and being observed. Right View Pro is what we use for video analysis of, so we can show them 120 frames a second. We're going to be, taking a look. Every cage has those cameras in them, and we do a private lesson or a small group lesson as we do out in Houston. We're going to use those with pitchers and with hitters to show them the X-ray, if you will, of their delivery, of their swing, whatever they're doing. They're going to be able to look at it and compare it to major league hitters, and that's important to me. There's a lot of software out there that you can get to edit and mark up on. But then you don't have something really great to put side by side. And that's why Right View Pro is great. Don Slott and Marcel out at Right View Pro did a great job of hooking up with MLB and having access to the most current hitters. So, a kid today wants to be compared to Mike Trout or Bryce Harper, and we're able to do that, where some of these other ones just take a generic swing, and that's not as helpful because they don't see the exact hit in the game that a player might have had a month or 2 ago.
Well, I'm glad you just brought up Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, because I was going to ask you, who were some of the top players that you reference your players to? Just say, hey, check this guy out. Do you show them slow motion videos of a certain player? I was just curious if there's certain players that you pick out. I know you just said those 2. I was wondering if there's any more you like looking at.
Well, I've always been a Pujols fan. He's actually probably, when people hear this, they'll probably laugh because they say, man, you always seem to go to Pujols when you want to compare my swing. And in a way, you could say that he has a very complex swing, but I think it's very simple because realistically, we could take just about any major league hitter that's playing and and having some success as a hitter in the major leagues, we can take that and we can and look at it. But as great as Albert and all these guys are and their swings are, it's not fair to them to take all of their swings, and they would probably be the first ones to say that, don't put that swing in there. I got fooled on a changeup. So when we're talking about looking at swings, we could look at a lot of them for different reasons. If I'm trying to show a hitter that he doesn't need to stride, I might show a major league hitter that has a big stride, or I might show a major league hitter that has no stride. So that to me is the biggest thing. If a major league hitter is hitting the ball over the fence, or he hit a laser in the gap, they're not going to be defying science. They're going to be. So we could look at that swing, and we could talk about all the different linkage from the feet through the hips, through the shoulder, through the elbow, and how it came through. There's not been a player yet that comes up there and defies science and tries to, anatomically do it different and hit the ball over the fence. It's not magic. It's it's energy transferred through the body and slammed into the ball, and it's not easy to do. So when you find one of those swings and you can look on ESPN every single night, and every home run pretty much has checked all the boxes when it comes to timing and matching the plane of the ball. Every once in a while you get, out in Colorado, you might get under one and maybe the collision course was a little low, but the ball floated. But those are rare, few and far in between.
I don't know. You watch Camden Yards and the balls just seem to fly out of there some days on a 90-degree day, like you don't even need to hit them. No.
I know.
Maybe it's the pitching staff. I don't know. No.
It is. It's hard to figure it out. There's some ballparks just seem to carry better, and they are messing with the baseballs a lot, making them a little better to entertain the game. I know at different levels, and the bats are constantly changing. It's something else that we've seen. Now that the bats are definitely a little more not as lively as they once were, but they're still hitting the ball pretty hard. So.
Now, one thing I want to bring up, because this kind of conversation happens all over social media, and it's probably mostly from the people unwilling to change or unwilling to have an open mind. But, everybody, you listen to some of these forums and tweets that go out or something, and, everybody says you guys are ruining the game. You people teaching this launch angle, teaching all this stuff, or you're ruining the game. It's these swings don't play. That you're trying to teach these kids on these video boards, basically, like, trying to swing big and all that. What do you say to some of those people out there? Obviously, there's haters in everything that you do, but what would you say to persuade people to believe in what you're teaching?
I would, it's really been amazing. Those two words, launch angle, have caused so much discussion and debate on ESPN and on social media. And I have been, trying to. I'm one of those guys that are out there just screaming, and of course, I don't feel like anybody's listening. Sometime, to me, launch angle is simply a measurement of the angle. So that would be like, and believe me, many, many, many major league players are on Twitter and on ESPN every day, and I don't need to mention their names, but these guys hit 1,000 more home runs than you or I ever have. It's like no different than getting in my car and stepping on the gas and watching the speedometer and saying, and get out of the car and go, I just hate miles per hour. I just think miles per hour is so stupid. It's really just, bad. But miles per hour just really got to get out of my car. I can't stand it. It's a measurement of how fast you're going. Launch angle is a measurement of how the ball took off your bat. So measurement has nothing. And then they try to argue and go, well, no, but we're saying, how you approach the ball. The way the ball is coming in is as I said, is a very finite path, and it has that certain energy, that leading edge of the ball. So as you hit it, if you hit the balls, and we can teach hitters to start to put their bodies in position to hit the ball between 10 degrees and 30 degrees. If you can do it off a tee, and then you start to figure out how to do it off a flip, and then you start to do it off a live hitter, you can actually stop hitting ground balls. I ask kids all the time when they come to me and they're swinging down, I ask them, are you in an all ground ball league or something? Why are you trying to hit all ground balls? I thought double plays, and there's 4 guys trying to cover the infield, 5 guys with a pitcher, and you're trying to beat it by them when we have something that's the size of a football field with 3 guys covering it. Why wouldn't we try to be hitting it out there? And not to mention, right now, summer baseball is going on, perfect games going on, and the kids are committing. Right before our phone call, 2 kids committed, one at Ole Miss, one at Clemson. I can guarantee you they didn't get committed because they were hitting plenty of ground balls. They're getting committed because they're blasting doubles, triples, and home runs. And the last I checked, those things are way out there, about 400 feet away. They're not in the infield green grass. So just a lot of different, frustration with launch angle is it's something that I hope they all learn. You'll see big league hitters will even say, this launch angle swing. There's no such thing as a launch angle swing. That is the same thing as saying, these mile per hour cars are just really driving me crazy. It doesn't make sense. It is every hitter that hit 496 home runs. They had a launch angle on 496 of those, and I guarantee you they were anywhere from 22 degrees to 32 degrees. There's no way that they were any lower than that, and probably unless they blasted them 105 miles an hour. I tell people all the time, if you hit balls at 45 degrees, plan on being out a lot. Unless you can hit them 110, 120 degrees, then they will go over most fences. But most home runs you see are going to be anywhere from 25 to 35 degrees and in that small window.
Now, can you just talk a little bit about how this measurable data is used in the college recruiting process now? Because I know, for years it's always been, what's your 60 time? How hard can you throw the ball? Exit velocity started to come around, a few years ago and all that. But how important is it, this measurable data that you've been able to accumulate, whether it's the video or the hit tracks data that you can keep on a player for 6-9 months? How is that stuff now coming into play with the college recruiting process?
I don't really know. I mean, I do talk to a lot of recruiters out there, and I don't think that I think it's starting to make sense to them a little bit because they're starting to hear those numbers, and they have a relationship between what does it mean. If I call a guy and I say, this kid's banging the ball 95 miles an hour off the bat, that might sound like something to them, but I don't think they're going to run out. They're going to run out and see the kid because I'm excited about the hitter or the number, or another guy might be excited about whoever's telling him. That's why they're going to see it. It's really about relationships. I don't know per se if they're going on Perfect Game even got into keeping the hit track stats, and I just don't know. I think most recruiters are still wanting to put eyes on them. But there is a phrase that I've used for many years, and I think we're all talking about the same thing. And if we ever went to middle school and we were in band class, we understand percussion instruments, and baseball is a percussion instrument. The bat is a banging stick, just like a xylophone or a drum. And when a hitter reaches percussion and that sound, that vibration happens, it doesn't matter if you're grandma in the bleachers, that kid just had a good hit by the sound, the vibration off the bat, whether it's a wood bat, a BB core bat, or a little league bat. They reach percussion. And at the end of the day, that's what recruiters are looking for, the kid that knows how to reach percussion with that bat more times than the other player. And so it equates to, high ball exit speeds. And typically, launch angles kind of come with that, you would hope. It's very hard to put your body in a position to hit a 98 mile an hour, ground ball to the shortstop. Just doesn't seem to work that way. Why? Because the way the ball's coming in. And that goes back to the science of the release of the ball. Backspin is a myth, and I've been saying that for many years, and it's been proven in very small circles. But I can tell you, if I ever wanted to get a lot of backlash on a podcast, saying backspin is a myth is probably it's one of my most enjoyable topics to have a conversation with pro players and pro hitters, because that's kind of like the next. Did you really just say backspin is a myth? And I say, yes, I did say backspin is a myth. And the answer is, why did you say that? We've been saying for 100 years, hit down on the ball and create backspin. And when you really break it down for people, when I do in person, they, within 6 minutes, understand what I'm saying. They might not be running around telling people that backspin's a myth because they just told people for the last 10 or 20 years to hit down on the ball and get backspin. That's probably one of the biggest obstacles for instructors, is when I tell them and I convince them quietly in our little cage. How do they go out and they tell their 100 guys that they're working with that you won't believe what just happened? I talked to Rob Ciaravino, and he explained to me that backspin is a myth, and you don't have to worry about, I mean, think about it, guys. A aluminum bat, a wood bat. Okay, these companies build these bats with so much research. Easton and DeMarini and all these Louisville, so these bat companies are researching the best way for their bat to slam that baseball. Don't you think that by 2019 they would have put grooves in the bat or sandpaper at the end of the bat or something? If my job was to create spin on a ball, why are they still so shiny? You could put your hand on the end of a bat and the only thing on there is some paint. There's nothing to change the spin of the ball. And here's another one for those baseball guys out there that are thinkers, and even the mom and dads that are listening. When a pitcher takes the ball in his hand and he throws a 90-mile-an-hour fastball at you, he is throwing it with backspin to that hitter. So it's coming to me with backspin. He's on the other side of the tennis court, so to speak. I have to then reverse that spin. I'm supposed to reverse it with a shiny bat. I'm supposed to get my 9-year-old to reverse the spin with his little shiny bat. So say, okay, well, his job is to reverse the spin of that ball. Well, how about the next pitch? That high school kid grabs the ball and coach puts down a 2 or a 3 and he's going to throw a curveball or a slider. And now the kid puts his hands on top of the ball and he throws the hardest curveball that he can to that batter. And now that same batter that just had a back spinning ball coming at him is now got a top spinning ball coming at him. And he takes that bat and he goes to hit it. And somehow or another, he's supposed to take the same exact swing that his coach taught him to hit the back spinning ball as he does the top spinning ball. And we're supposed to tell hitters that in 2019, listen, there's some crazy magic that happens at this collision point. We don't know how it happens, but all of a sudden the bat and the ball in the blink of an eye get together and they say, hey, buddy, you're just going to keep spinning like this. You're going to change the spin of one and you're going to go with the spin on the other. And at that time, I realized backspin is a myth. What we're really trying to do, guys, is we take a baseball apart. All you have to do is be a kid and take a baseball apart. 2 pieces of leather sewn together by some beautiful lady in Haiti or somewhere with 107 stitches. And you take those 2 things apart, and then you're left with a bunch of string. I don't know, about 18 miles of string. And you take all that off, and you try to get to the bottom. And then all of a sudden, you're left with what they call the pill, the center, that little Super Ball, the little red Super Ball that every person that's in baseball and softball has seen in one time or another in their life. And then you take those 3 items up. You take the 2 pieces of leather with the 107 stitches, you throw them in the air, and you hit them, and it goes about 8 feet. And then you take all that string, and you ball that together, and you throw it up, and it goes about 10 feet, 11 feet. But then you take that Super Ball, the pill, and you throw that up, and you hit it just right, and that little ball goes about a football field or more. So when you put all those components back together, the Super Ball, the pill, then you wrap it tight with the string and you put the laces back together somehow, magically put all those laces back together. And then you throw a kid the ball, and you know what's different, guys? Absolutely nothing. We're still trying to bounce that Super Ball as hard as we can. We were not trying to cut the laces and hit the laces to make this thing. That's the pitcher's job. He gets to hold the ball. We have to use a shiny bat to change the spin. And guess what? The days are over of trying to do that. So it's not happening. Now, we don't want to go under the ball. We don't want to go over the ball. We want to go through the ball and bounce the Super Ball as hard as you can. And that's what's happening every day and every night. And I just wish I could get the word out. And that's one of the reasons, I wanted to make sure we talked about tonight is that, backspin is a myth. And that brings on it's hard to do it over the phone. Mm-hmm. So I hope that explanation was helpful, but it is fun to talk about it on, in person because, I bring a pill, I hold it up and I'll show the kid, look, this is what it is if you haven't seen it, So that's kind of my take on backspin, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people say he doesn't know what he's talking about, but because they take bits and pieces of it. But at the end of the day, it's again science and kind of going with science.
I love how you explained that. That was beautifully done. And your analogies, by the way, are probably the best analogies I've ever heard. From the miles per hour to, all the other ones you used. I love it. I will ask.
You broke up a little bit there.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just saying that your analogies and the way you explain things are perfect. But I wanted to ask you about this. You had, you were just talking about, the curveball come in, then there was a fastball, the different spins on the ball. And earlier in the podcast, you were talking about how, different pitches are coming at these batters, and basically they gotta understand what to do with each pitch. I'm just curious, can you talk to us, especially for the young coaches? I'm actually going to be helping coach this year for the first time. Tyler's been a coach for 13, 14 years already, but I'm going to be helping coach for the first time. So it's kind of a question for me as well. How do you pitch a productive batting cage session? I mean, I've seen people just throw the ball and that's it, and they're just basically offering up the best pitch possible to have the kids hit really hard. But then I've seen stuff online where people are, trying to throw, all kinds of stuff outside, throw it harder, they'll throw off speed. I'm just curious, what's a productive batting cage session look like for you?
Well, that really depends on where we're at in the stage of development. But if you if you guys brought your player to me, your son or daughter to us, the first thing that we're going to do at the hitting academy is going to be to put them on a tee, because we talk about the 5 stages of hitting, and the first one is a dry swing, just actually no tee, just taking a look at the swing of what they're doing, how are they generating power, what are they doing with their body to get the bat moving. And that alone will teach us a lot of stuff. And then the next thing we're going to do after a dry swing is we're going to go into a tee, which is a non-moving ball, basically capturing the path of that ball and freezing it on a tee, and then making them understand how to throw their energy, the bat energy, into that non-moving ball. That's step 2. And then after that, we're going to go to front flips, which is a very soft, slow moving ball. And try to teach that player how to put that great swing that was in dry and now tee into a controlled moving ball. And in that phase, which is what you see a lot of the time coaches doing front flips, I don't like side flips, because until the pitcher's standing at shortstop or second base, we're not going to be doing side flips in the hitting academy. So we're going to do front flips because that's the angle the ball's always coming from. And then we're going to go, that's level 3, where we're going to move it. Now, at that stage, it's very important, and as well as the tee, is to put the ball in different locations. So, for example, an inside pitch, we're always going to want to hit that out in front of your front foot, about 8 to 10 inches, depending on how tall the hitter is. And then as you move to the outside pitch, that's going to be hit a lot deeper. And because it's the same exact swing, it just needs to be done different places. Out in front, so you got to go earlier on the fastball inside, and then as the ball gets outside, you have to let it get deeper to the catcher, closer to the catcher. So we do want to, and also down the middle, obviously, and we want to go along that line, and we want to continue to flip balls. That's why I like flips, because it's easy to control the location and the speed, and let that hitter kind of play with the idea of hitting balls in different lanes as they're coming to them. And then the fourth would be, modified pitch, a pitching machine throwing 60, something with some distance relatively close to what they're going to face at ball release. And then, whether it's a coach throwing live BP or a machine, that's another important phase. Phase 4 is, those kind of speed up the ball, speed up the body. And then phase 5 would be the live game. And we want our guys to do all of those, because all of those are very incremental ways to teach the swing: dry swing, tee, front flips, modified pitch, and then game.
Fantastic. I love it. I love that progression. I definitely agree with you on all of that. I think it's great, and I think every one of them serves a purpose, and I think more coaches should utilize all of those techniques, because I think some of them get stuck in doing certain things, and it kind of it doesn't help hitters evolve. Evolve in a progressive way, or even if they're struggling to get back to a spot where they can figure out how to make the adjustment to get better. And doing what you're talking about is the best way to do that.
You're right. It is. It's there's college players I work with right now. I'll put a ball on a tee, and they don't know how to hit it. And some of these guys are committed to big schools, and you say, well, how come? How come? Well, I just don't ever hit on the tee. Well, there's definitely things that we learn from all different stages in life and things that happen in life. And when it comes to hitting, you do learn how to, I tell my high school guys all the time, or anybody, take a bucket of balls. One of the best drills you can do is take 100 baseballs and put a tee on home plate and try to hit them all to the base of the fence, or heck, hit them over the fence for that matter. There was a time in my younger days I was able to take a ball off a tee and hit it over the fence pretty much any time I wanted. Now I wasn't the greatest hitter in the world, but when you look at understanding how to move a now throw it 80, I'm probably gonna go back to the dugout pretty early. But off a tee, if you're a good hitter, you should be able to blast balls, to the base of the fence. And the reason I use the base of the fence is because if you hit a fly ball to the infield, it's certainly not going to get to the base of a fence. But even a super hard ground ball will, a line drive will, and of course home runs will go over the fence. So I tell guys to do it. They sometimes are, they either don't have a bucket of balls or they don't have a field where they can sit there and do that. But that is a phenomenal drill, even at the Little League level. I used to do it with my own children. I'd take them out there and I would just put a tee there and I'd sit in the dugout and watch them and just say, I want to go along the fence and pick up the balls. I don't want to be going to second, shallow shortstop and left field, shallow left and right. And every once in a while, obviously, they're going to miss hit and get under one or over one. But if they can get them to the base of the fence, you're reaching percussion a lot, and especially on that big field.
Now, can you just talk a little bit about the cost of what this would be for, a new player coming in who wants to get some instruction in one of your facilities? What are parents or coaches looking to spend when they get to the front door?
We have tried, and as you said, it's not easy to stay in any business for 12, 13 years. We're going on our 13th year, so we are constantly trying to make it as affordable as we can. We do have 5, 6 instructors at our places that are full-time instructors, and I don't want them to have to go work at at the mall and stuff and come there at night. So they're with us pretty much full-time all the time, and we're constantly sending them slow motion videos and things. And so there are paid instructors, and we want the people that come to the hitting academy to to be there as often as possible. If they can get in there 2 days a week and they can learn and train and hit, lift and run and do the things, it takes time. As I said, there's no magic sauce. There's no magic pill that I can give you. It's learning the science of what you're doing, and it's repeating it over and over and over again. And so the dollars are going to be anywhere between $100 to $250 a month. We do a lot of memberships now. I started doing memberships back in 2009, and the reason we did that was because we realized that's a chance maybe to make it easier for parents to afford it, and because not everybody gets to come all the time. But if everybody can, kind of the gym mentality. And so we have memberships that start at, $99, unlimited hitting. You can come in there every single day and hit with us for $99 in Florida at our locations. We offer a different system out in Houston because we're not as big. We have, a small, excellent, small private group instruction where we do 2-3 hitters with one coach, and but everybody gets their own cage or their own bullpen, so it's great. So anywhere from that, and then as I said, if you want more training, we have packages that go all the way up to $900 for the real serious player that wants to try to get recruited or try to get into the draft in June and get ready. That person better be getting in there at least 3 to 4 days a week or getting somewhere. We'd love to have them train with us. So, it really just depends on where you're at in life and what your goals are. And we just know that we keep the cost down as low as we can. But, plan on spending anywhere between, $200 and $400. And you usually will get plenty of work.
Now, I guess we forgot to bring this up earlier, but for our listeners who are also, coaches for softball or even softball players listening to this, you also do training for softball players as well, correct?
We do. We have some excellent softball instructors throughout our program. And again, when it comes to hitting, all of our hitting coaches work with some great young girls that are out there trying to make their college or travel team. And, it's just truthfully, from a business standpoint, there is more in America. There is a lot more baseball players than softball players, and we love our softball players. They work hard as anyone, and we've seen some great progression, and we've seen a lot of girls sign scholarships that maybe they wouldn't have by not coming to the hitting academy. So, yeah, we welcome all the girls that come to us. They work hard, and it's been fun to watch them progress as well.
Now, Rob, what would you say some of your goals in the next 3 to 5 years are with the business, and where do you see it going, and what are some things that you might want to do different moving forward?
Well, I don't really have a big ambition to see the hitting academy all over the country. It'd be neat to have to just continue to produce great instruction for our members and our hitters, so that they can continue to grow and get better. I love this stage of my life. I really enjoy helping guys get to college because of all those relationships I have. So I don't really say I have any specific goals for the business, just to keep, providing what we're doing, just getting better every day. If you were an employee or a staff member with the Hitting Academy, you'll see 2 or 3 times a week I'm putting some of the information we've talked about today, just kind of reiterating it on our group. We have a group chat with all of our, I believe we have 22 instructors right now, and just keeping everybody on the same page and making sure that that nobody's out there being a science denier, and that works for us, because we do train them all, and we do continue to do that. Because when I first opened, I told my wife way back when, the worst thing that can happen with the Hitting Academy is we allow people to come in and just try to teach their own ideas from 1986, 92, whatever that they had. And believe me, in Florida, we have many people that come in with different ideas. And if I was to allow them to get into a cage wearing a Hitting Academy uniform and they're teaching such things as hit down or do different things, then that would be, poor customer service on our part. If the next lesson they came into or session and somebody's teaching them, match the plane of the ball. And so it's really just being more and more consistent and being better every single year, every single day. And getting our instructors to be better, because I'm only as good as my guys, and because I can't do lessons with everyone, but we have some of the best instructors across the county and the country, I should say, when it comes to getting kids better. I like to think that I could take someone in a cage. I don't care if he's a major league hitter, minor league hitter, college hitter. Give me him for an hour, and I will. I could pretty much. I hate to use that word guarantee, but guarantee they're at least gonna learn a lot. They're gonna learn something. Might be one thing, it might be 30 things. And I've had guys walk out that play at the biggest universities in the country. They walk out of the cage shaking their head going, I can't believe that I'm being told this, but you are right. What you're saying is right, because it's scientifically right. And you can't deny it.
Well, Rob, if you could go back in time and go back to Seminole High School and talk to 15, 16, 17-year-old Rob, what is some advice that you would tell yourself?
Well, the funny part of that scenario is that it's not any secret. I'm 52 years old. It's probably out there today's day and age, right, on the internet. So at 50, I decided to go back to Seminole High School and become the head coach for 2 years. And I unfortunately did just resign because my business it was hard to do it all. But I will say that we took that team to the regional final this year, about a month ago. And I was able to have those conversations with my players. And I believe that I was able to go every day. I type up a practice schedule every day. You could ask my players. I didn't miss a day. And it would say 2:00 to 2:10, we're going to stretch in left field or right field. But at the top of that, most importantly, and I kind of took this out of a book out of my friend Mike Bianco, we did a quote of the day every single day. And the guys that played for me for those 2 years never saw the same quote of the day. It was up at the top, and it would say something that I thought I wanted to elaborate to the guys. And we would start practice off with getting in a circle and talking, and I would say, okay, who's got the quote of the day? Their job was to get there and read that quote and think for at least 10 seconds. What does this mean to me? And it was amazing, those conversations that we would have. They would only be a minute or two long at the start of practice every single day. But those quotes were geared to help them become better young men, better baseball players. And I think of all the things that I was probably most proud of the last 2 years was those quote of the day, that quote of the day that I would find, and I would post it to them, and I would ask a different kid every day, well, what's it mean to you? And the things that would come out of their mouths and their minds were pretty interesting. It was different sometimes, and it would start a little conversation, but in the beginning they took it light. Oh, I didn't get a chance to read it, Coach. And I would jump on them, about that. And I say, well, how come? Why wouldn't you read that? I mean, I put it up there for a reason. Well, by the end of, the first year, they started looking forward to it and listening to it and looking at it. And I was able to put, so you ask, what would I say to a young Rob Ciaravino? Well, I had the chance to say it to a lot of young Rob Ciaravinos the last 2 years. And more so, with my own, I have 2 children, so they've heard all the quotes. So I have 4 children, but my 2 boys heard those quotes for many years. So I was able to do it at the high school level and just really teach them, to play the game right, play it with a level of respect that it deserves, and not to think that you know it all and just try to improve. I think the biggest thing was when I first got there, I asked the group of however many kids, hey, do you guys want to play college baseball? Raise your hand. And I think we had about 60 kids in the auditorium that day, and all 60 raised their hand. And I said, okay, well, that's great. I'm glad everybody wants to play college baseball. I can really appreciate that. Next question. Show me, or can you tell me the roadmap that you have drawn up for yourself to get there? Well, those 60 hands went down about as fast as you could imagine because none of them had a roadmap. They just thought, well, I thought that's what you were the coach for. I thought you were just going to kind of help us with that. And I tried to tell them that, I do have a strong pulse of right now of how to get there. It's just you individually have to know where you fit and go where you wanted, play where you wanted. It's not always going to be Ole Miss or Florida State, but it might be, as I said, some JUCO in North Carolina or something like that. So probably just to be realistic my oldest son he was a phenomenal baseball player growing up, and he decided that he wanted to go to Florida State and be a college student, and he's doing a phenomenal job there doing that. So that life is great as well. You don't have to spend 600 hours during your college career playing college baseball. It's not the end all be all of life, and it's fun. But I think kids today get a little caught up in the fact that they have to play college baseball or their life has been a failure up till that point. And that's certainly nothing could be further from the truth. It seems like a great idea, but go talk to some of those college players that have been doing it for 2 or 3 years and they're not quite playing as often, but they still have to show up at those 6 o'clock runs, and they still got to go to class, and they got to go tired, and they got to do all that, and they're not playing. So it's not always roses to be a college baseball player, or better yet, go ask a minor leaguer how it's going for him. And he's batting 138, and he's on a bus, to Tupelo, Mississippi for 3 hours, and he didn't even get his pants dirty. So it's just be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it.
Right. Wow. Well, you've made a lot of connections along the way over the years of playing, coaching. We would love to find out who you think we should bring on to this show that could add value for our listeners and share some knowledge, whether it be baseball, softball, or just the mental part of life.
Well, the first person that comes to mind is, as I said, I've mentioned him a few times, is one of my dearest friends, Mike Bianco. I don't think that there's a better. He's the head coach at Ole Miss. I don't think that there's a better speaker. His knowledge is through the roof. When it comes to just the baseball world, and I don't think there's too many better men out there when it comes to raising a team, players, young men. So any time that I could recommend someone, it's going to be him. He's somebody that I've looked up to. We used to ride around on handlebars together as a kid 10 years old, going to Seminole Middle School together, playing high school ball together. But he has certainly surpassed just about everybody in the country when it comes to college baseball coaching. Now, I know he's super busy. I'm not going to say that he would, be able to. We might not be able to get him, for an hour or two on your podcast. But if one day we could set that up, that would be something I think would be very, very beneficial to your listeners. And I have many guys that come to mind when you ask me that question, and of course he was the first one that pops up. We were fortunate enough to have Coach Bianco come to the hitting academy in November, and again, I think a lot of it had to do with our personal relationship. He was, I work with his children as hitters over the years and have helped them so it was nice for him to, announce when he stood up there in front of 100 coaches and said that, Rob Ciaravino is not just one of my best friends, he's also my son's hitting coach, has some impact, on a lot of the coaches there. So that was neat.
That is awesome. Rob, if you can you let our listeners know the website, your social media accounts, where people can get more information about what you're offering and what you're doing, and where they could reach out if they wanted to?
Well, sure. Thehittingacademy.com is our website, and it's and then you have locations. Our 4 locations are located on there, and then you can look at the different ways that you could improve. And of course, we have our Twitter page, and we have our Instagram page, and those all can link out of the website. Best thing to do is to go to the website, thehittingacademy.com, and check that out. One thing, I would extend to the listeners of the podcast. It's not on our website, but it's sending in a video of their swings. If they wanted to, they could, attach it to a link on our website or send it to my email at rc@thehittingacademy.com. It's my initials, rc@thehittingacademy.com. And they could take a video of their son or daughter, and we would, look at it, break it down, and we could take it a step further if they want, and treat it as a lesson, and edit that video for them if it comes to us in something. We like the profile view, the side view. If you were a right-handed hitter, it would be the camera would be in the left-handed batter's box. That's a helpful one to look at, length in the swing and things like that. And of course, another great view is to capture from behind, to see the tilt of the spine and see if they're matching the plane of the ball. So, but more importantly, going back to your question, thehittingacademy.com is our best resource of information and contact to come out of there.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate that. And we do have one more question for you.
Sure.
And we asked every single one of our guests this question. If you had one at bat in the major leagues, what song would you choose as your walk-up song to the plate?
You broke up there, but I think you asked which walk-up song would I have. My favorite song of all time is The Climb by Miley Cyrus, and it's a great singer. She's got a great voice, but it's really about the words in there. And I know that wouldn't make a great pump up walk up song, but I just always seem to go to that song because it talks about the efforts that it takes to get something in life. And I tell my kids all the time to that song pretty much talks about just enjoy it, look at the process, watch it, and don't just set yourself up for failure. It's about really enjoying the growth of it, and it's about enjoying the process. And that song, I think, kind of lends itself to that concept, of not just worried about did I get the prize or not, but the road that it takes to get there. And so that's probably not everybody's favorite. It's not going to rock the house, but that's mine. So,
hey, I love it. Actually, I just sang that song with my daughter at Tyler's daughter's graduation party.
Oh, that's awesome. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we do it all the time. They're always, my kids, my 4 children are always, Dad, here's your song. They know. And I got a lot of songs, but I think that one probably stands out the most as my relationship with them as well. So
excellent. Well, Rob, we really appreciate you coming on the show and talking to us. So much great knowledge that we got out of this. So many nuggets that people can take and actually apply to their coaching or to their playing. And we really appreciate it. And we wish you the best of luck.
Well, thanks, guys. I tell you, it's it's been an enjoyable hour or so, and look forward to helping as many people as we can. So, in the future, if I can help in any way, feel free to give me a call, and we'll do it again.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate it. Best of luck moving forward with everything. And when we get to Florida, we'll hit you up. That's for sure.
Awesome, Dan, Tyler. Talk to you guys soon.
All right. See ya.
Bye now.
The struggles I'm facing, the chances I'm taking, sometimes might knock me down, but no.
Love that interview so much because, man, the way he explains things is absolutely phenomenal. And it's so easy to, understand. And he was talking about sciencey stuff, but he put it in perspective so someone like myself...
As complicated as it sounds, it really doesn't need to be.
No,
honestly. And he does a fantastic job. And I think probably some of the younger athletes that he's working with probably pick up on these things really quickly. And I think some of the things he's saying make a lot of sense no matter what the age you are. And it's refreshing to hear somebody explain things that way, because I think some people would get too far into it and they don't realize that they're actually making it more complicated than it needs to be. So fantastic stuff. What he's doing is awesome, honestly. And I wish that we had facilities like that in this area. There's not many, but it's pretty incredible. And the relationship he has with so many players and then players he's sent on to play at another level, it just speaks for itself. When you talk about a guy with a business history of that long, obviously it's working, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's doing something right.
Something like that doesn't happen overnight by accident.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, guys, you can check us out on all things social media at Going Yard Podcast and on Twitter at GY Podcast. And also, if you like what we're doing every single week and you want to be a part of it and help us out, go to our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/goingyardpodcast, and you can find out how you can help the podcast every single week. And we would absolutely appreciate that because we love everything that you guys and gals do for us.
We couldn't do it without you. You can find all those links that Dan's talking about on our website, goingyardpodcast.com. You can Google Going Yard Podcast, and you can find all the information on there as well. You can find out where you can download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, and Google Play. Leave us a 5-star review if you could. Subscribe. And that way, every time we put out a softball episode on Tuesday or a baseball episode on Friday, you will automatically have it downloaded.
That's right. And that's a wrap for this episode. So for Rob Ciaravino in the Hitting Academy and all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.